Hey guys, Wolvie here with a special presentation for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. This is the 1st of November 2020. This is an update to a series I haven't touched on in a while, and it is the potential future of Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now, I will mention here that two countries are going to be talked about in this particular video. One is new, the other one already has regulation on loot boxes and microtransactions in place. So that is that on that. So before I go any further, I have to throw out my usual disclaimer. Excuse me. And that being, any opinion in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. So we're just going to jump straight into it. Now, I will have a couple of articles related to what I'm talking about from Eurogamer.net in the description below, so that way you guys can do more like reading and research on your own time. So the countries that I will be talking about in this particular video are the Netherlands and Canada. Now, you guys, some of you guys may be a little bit surprised about Canada because you don't really hear anything with them and the topic in hand. Loot box and microtransactions regulation. Now, the whole thing with Electronic Arts, EA, as it's better known as, the thing is with them, that some can argue that they're the reason why default is no longer available in Belgium. Now, for those of you who may have been with default for since the beginning on either JP and or Global, you would have known that there was some notification saying, hey, we're no longer going to be in Belgium. We're pulling out because we don't know, like, the whole thing regarding their laws on loot box and microtransactions sort of thing. So some of you guys may have remembered that part. So the whole thing with the Belgium situation, is that the Netherlands actually has their own regulations in place. So without any further delay, we're going to go into the two articles from Eurogamer.net. So I will be pausing the video and we'll be right back. And here is the article from, believe it or not, Eurogamer.net. And this is the whole thing with the Netherlands and the fine they were given. So the whole particular fine, as you see here, is that a judge in the court of the Netherlands, they gave EA a pretty nasty fine, which in this title here says EA to appeal Dutch FIFA loot boxes ruling following €10 million fine. So you notice that icon before the one that is the indicator for euros. So you guys might want to grab out a calculator to translate the 10 million euros to your local currency, whether it be Canadian dollars, United States dollars, Australian dollars, British pounds, Mexican pesos, etc., etc. So it says here, the very first sentence, EA has said it will appeal a ruling from Dutch authorities over loot boxes in FIFA after it was fined up to $10 million in euro. In a mid-October ruling, judges at the Court of The Hague authorized the Netherlands Gambling Authority's enforcement of the fine, first imposed in 2019 and published today. And mind you, this article was written on the 29th of October, so this was a few days ago. EA has 3 weeks from the date of the order, which is the 15th of October, to change the way FIFA 19, FIFA 20, and FIFA works in the Netherlands. So in effect, it has 1 week to make a change to its most recent FIFA games. If it refuses to make a change, EA must pay 500,000 euros per week up to a maximum penalty of 10 million euros in fines. The Netherlands Gambling Authority declared loot boxes illegal because they are considered a game of chance and therefore violate the country's Gambling Act. Under Dutch law, a game of chance that allows a prize or premium to be won can only be provided if a relevant license has been granted. FIFA lets players spend real-world money on Ultimate Team Packs, which contain a random assortment of players for use online against other human opponents, as well as against the computer. FIFA has been accused of being paid to win and encouraging children to gamble because of this mechanic, which is highly lucrative for EA. According to video game industry analyst Piers Harding Rolls, the FIFA game is a $2 billion annual business for EA, with the majority of revenue coming from the Ultimate Team sales. So this is the information you see right here. A study carried out by the KSA in 2018 found that there may be a correlation between playing games that incorporate loot boxes and development of an addiction to gambling. So this is the information you see here. Now, the important thing to note here is that for the whole thing with the Belgium ruling from 2018, it was January 2019, as you see here, EA stopped selling FIFA points in Belgium following government pressure. So, yeah, EA was defiant in Belgium for a while, but they kind of crumbled in January 2019 as a result. So the whole thing with EA appealing the ruling, it says here this quotation where I have a little bit of emphasis. Players all over the world have enjoyed FIFA and FIFA Ultimate Team mode for many years, and as such, we are disappointed by this decision and what it may be for our Dutch community. We do not believe that our products and services violate gambling laws in any way. We are appealing this decision, and we seek to avoid a situation impacting the ability of Dutch players to fully experience and enjoy FIFA Ultimate Team. Electronic Arts is completely committed to positive play. We seek to bring choice, fairness, value, and fun to all our players in all of our games. We remain open to discussions with the Netherlands Gambling Authority and other stakeholders to understand and explore any solutions to address any concerns. Now, the whole thing with EA, we could argue that they're the reason why default is no longer available in Belgium. Now, the whole thing here in the Netherlands, this could also impact default in as well. Now, because the Netherlands are planning on appealing the decision, this could bring a very interesting situation to default and not a good one. Now, the reason why I say it like that is that I'm going to put out a hypothetical scenario, meaning that it hasn't yet to happen, but there is a chance that it could. Or I'm just going to explain the hypothetical scenario in its fullest. So let's pretend that EA makes their appeals for the fines, but they lose that appeal. And they refuse to pay it. The number goes up so high, and they have that limitation, the 500,000 euro per week fine and that's up to 10 million. So you have about 20 weeks for EA to, say, hey, you need to pay up this fine. Now, EA doesn't pay the fine, they lose the appeal. Now, the worst case scenario here is that if EA goes that very route, the EA games could no longer be available in the Netherlands. Now, as a result of this could very well hurt any other mobile gadget games available in the Netherlands. And that includes default. So it's one of those things that for those in the Netherlands, EA has to seriously either step up their game, or they're going to be seen as a real villain in the sense of they're not following court orders, and other games and other companies are in financial trouble as a result. So it has this bizarre domino effect where, okay, EA, you fucked up. Now we all have to pay because of your fuck up. And part of my language, but hey, I do have to, elaborate on the worst case scenario. Now, however, even though the best case scenario where EA, under pressure, you say, hey, we got to remove it, this could hurt default as well because EA removed their loot boxes and microtransactions, default has to be done with all the other games that have that mechanic. And unfortunately, default does have the microtransactions mechanic because, yes, I am a pay-to-play player. I do want to financially support the game, but it's like, in all honesty, it's like, are companies being transparent about this mechanism? And I think it's going to be EA that kind of changes things for other video game companies, and not necessarily in the best way. So with the Netherlands, the whole thing what's going on right now in the Netherlands, EA appealing a fine of the magnitude. This can present a really interesting scenario for Defo. I honestly don't feel that Defo is going to be in the Netherlands for much longer, regardless of what EA does. And again, one could argue that EA is the reason why Defo is no longer available in Belgium. Now, if Defo is removed from the Netherlands, regardless of what EA does, this could present a very, very bad scenario for Defo in the long term, because you have less countries that can actually access the game in a legal manner. Now, people do access stuff like Defo and whatever via a virtual private network, but you have to remember about VPNs. These are traceable. And all anything it would take for you to be discovered is the VPN you're using doing something really nasty. And by nasty, potentially illegal. So it's like you have to keep certain things in mind with what you do, regardless if you use a VPN or you don't. Now, the other article I'm going to go into is the one pertaining to what's currently going on in Canada. So this is another recent article. And the title for this particular article is called EA Faces Class Action Lawsuit Over Loot Boxes in Canada. Now, I will point out one thing in this article. I did read it. Is that they omitted a country where EA is also getting sued at. That particular country that's omitted from this article is actually France. So that's one thing I do want to point out with this article before going over it. This article was written on the 22nd of October 2020, so it's not as recent as the one about the Netherlands, but we do have an EA lawsuit over the loot boxes microtransactions, so I'm just going to skim all the way down because I don't want to reveal people's names on accident. So here's the thing with this. So the class action lawsuit, it does mention here that the state of California within the United States, EA got sued over there as well. But like I said, they omitted France because there was a lawsuit going on against EA in France. We haven't heard anything about it since. So it's one of those, it's like, you have more countries where either EA is being sued, people are talking about loot box and microtransaction regulation, or they're wanting to either introduce the legislation or change existing legislation. Now, the whole thing with Spain, we haven't heard anything new with them regarding the legislation they want to put into their laws regarding loot box and microtransaction legislation. And the thing is, I do want to mention here is that in the Chicago area, Illinois, that's the area where I live at. And I want to actually reveal this right now so that way people are aware, is that I actually had a conversation with a few individuals at a convention I go to on a yearly basis. And the convention is the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo, better known as C2E2. So I'm not so sure which day it was, and I want to say it was this year. It could have been last year. My memory's not the world's best. Is that I had a brief conversation about the whole thing, and then the few individuals I actually had a conversation with on the way to the venue where C2E2 is held, is that they were all in support of legislation on microtransactions and loot boxes. They are all supportive of it, and I want to say at least two of them were wanting them to be completely gone. So I can say with all sorts of certainty and honesty is that there is a growing surge of sorts for regulations on loot boxes and microtransactions in the United States. As seen with my conversations with a few individuals, as well as this particular lawsuit in California. So there is a bit of a growth in that regard in the United States. People may not know about it, but it's there. And now that we know that there's a lawsuit going on in Canada alongside France, and these lawsuits are both against EA, and then you have the ruling from the judges in the Netherlands, EA is could be seen as the reason why other mobile gadget games get removed or get completely reworked where they have to play by the rules of the law. And you can't fight the law and win. You just can't. And this does have a potential effect on default because Square Enix, when they removed default and other mobile gadget games from Belgium, it was under the reasoning, if I remember the wording correctly, that they were unclear of the how it was worded in Belgium, which some can see as a cop-out. So with all of that, what do I think about this new development in Canada and a newer development in the Netherlands? Us default players, regardless if we're both JP and global hybrid, JP only or global only, we all need to be talking about this. Because now we have Canada excuse me. Now we have Canada as a potential country where loot box and microtransaction regulation could be introduced. This is something that could change the way we see default. And for those in the UK, there is still some time before they do something about the existing gambling laws in the UK. And the more we don't talk about it, the more likely we're going to see more countries where either EA is getting sued or fines are coming against EA, and those fines affect the other games that are existing there with the microtransactions and loot box mechanics. And that includes default. Square Enix, I'm not so sure if they can afford these fines. And for people who say that Square Enix is making lots and lots of money, you guys have to remember that every company has different departments. Different departments have different budgets, different sources of revenue. So just because Square Enix is making millions and millions of dollars, you have to think about it. How much of it is going to one department? How much of it is going to a second department? How much of it is going to a third department? And you don't have, we can't really say that default's making so much money because the revenue is different for default than it is for a console game. And the less money there is for mobile gadget games, the more problems it occurs. In some ways, more so than console games. And this could be the push that's desperately needed for games to be coming out full, complete, and with fewer issues. And for me, yes, I am a pay-to-play player for default. But I also support loot box and microtransactions regulations because of the simple thing, and I use an off-topic here which could correlate. For me, it's like with the stuff I eat, I want to know what I put in my system. I want to know what ingredients are in there. And stuff, and it's like that's the same thing. That's the same approach I have with the games I play. I want to make sure I know what's in this game. Does it have microtransactions or loot boxes? Do I have to purchase whatever to access the next part of the game? Because without that transparency, in all honesty, I could be paying thousands of dollars for an incomplete console game. And without people talking about this sort of thing, we're going to see more countries introducing loot box and microtransaction regulation to where default can no longer be available. And to be honest with you, this change is like, I would like to have a game where it doesn't have that many bugs in it, where it's complete, where I can just sit back and enjoy the ending. That's what I want. And the longer we go on not talking about this, more countries will be having laws in place where default could no longer be available legally, where people will be forced to use VPNs. And VPNs, again, these are traceable in time. So it's one of those things it's where it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it is what it is at the end of the day. So with Wolfie here, signing off, I will catch you all on the flip side.